welcome.
Thank you.
Shannon, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Pleasure to be here in Cannes.
Thank you. We're at the film festival.
We are.
We're at the Carlton Hotel, which is the most emblematic place.
It is a very storied location for our film, yes.
That means that's a special meaning to you, actually, the Carlton Hotel.
Yes, I've been doing some location scouting while I've been here.
Okay, how about you tell us what brings you to Cannes this year?
Well, what brings me to Cannes, we're here kind of making the first little ripples of information about a film that I've been trying to make for a very long time about the Bentley Boys.
Wonderful.
And those of you who are familiar with their story might know that a very pivotal moment took place here in this hotel where the man who was the chairman of Bentley Motors at the time, he staged what's become known as legend, but was in fact a publicity stunt, where he decided to race his 6-liter Bentley up the coast against the Blue Train to draw attention to the Bentley brand when sales had stagnated after the Great Depression. But it made a very big splash in that day, as he had hoped it would, and has become legend. And that's one of the reasons we're here. We're taking a look at the exterior of the hotel, which looks exactly the same as it did in 1930 when he staged that stunt. I don't know that we'll be able to shoot inside, but we're going to bring a crew down here and have the Bentley under the famous portico.
So we're right at the heart of history here.
Right at the heart of history here, yes.
So
and of the film industry this week, anyway.
Best of both worlds.
Yes.
So the movie will be about the Bentley Boys, not only this Blue Train story that made Bentley famous.
Yes, exactly. It's a very small part, yes. And in fact, a very special Bentley girl, Dorothy Paget, who she provided some financing for somewhat controversial technology when Tim Birkin, who was, in my opinion, the most charismatic of the Bentley Boys, insisted on attaching what was known as sort of a hand grenade to the front of a beautifully engineered Bentley in 1929 to make it go faster, because he believed the Germans were coming. History has borne out that he was right, but at the time he decided the only way to stop them was to build blower Bentleys. So he went looking for financing, and it wasn't a very popular idea. Bentleys were winning all of the world's biggest races in those days, so why mess with a good thing? But he was one of those people in our midst who are sort of too much for others and very charismatic, and they're always pushing us out of our comfort zone and pushing us to embrace change. And he said, we're going to build this technology, and convinced Dorothy Paget, who was the wealthiest heiress in the UK at the time, was also a lesbian who gambled, smoked, drank, shot, and rode horses.
Everything we like.
Everything she liked, but nothing that her family liked.
Okay.
So she too was a bit of a misfit. And these two teamed up and built these blower Bentleys. And without that technology, I believe Bentley would not have beaten the Germans in the 1930 Grand Prix.
That's right, Mercedes and Caracciola.
Yes.
You have the 7-liter at the time.
Exactly, yes. There's some controversy over this, but for our purposes, it is a dramatic coming together of both Bentley's efforts and of Tim Birkin and Dorothy Paget's efforts. They teamed up, and as most people who know the Bentley story know, Tim Birkin went gung-ho after Caracciola for the first several laps of the race and forced the Germans to overuse their supercharger. And in the end, the car fell out of the race, and the Bentley Boys cruised effortlessly to their 4th Le Mans victory. And within a matter of weeks, the team was sort of splintering, and the company was on its way to being sold to Rolls-Royce. So it was a moment that was slipping away.
Yeah, but that was in the wake of the crisis of 1929 that reached Europe a good year later.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically the movie is to cover the span of the 10 first years of Bentley Motors.
We pick it up when they're sort of at the height of their prowess. Okay. They've won Le Mans twice in a row, 3 times total. And Babe Barnotto wants his hat trick. He wants to win a 3rd time. And then he sort of is starting to see this motor company that he bought is a bit more trouble than he intended, and he doesn't like to lose money, and so he's quietly pursuing selling the brand. But they were at the height, and then, of course, we know the Wall Street crash was tough on the world, so their fortunes were starting to decline. It's very much a resonant story in our own time, as we examine the shifting geopolitical power dynamics. You know, it's a bit of a metaphor. Uncertain technology, who's going to control that industry in the future, the greatest nations of the world duking it out on the racetracks of Europe in the infancy of motor racing. It's all very exciting, but it should feel quite familiar to where we are now. And what I love about it is that for the first time, there's been about a decade of studio racing movies, and none of them has had a consequential female character. And they've all made over $100 million at the box office without bothering to pay attention to half the global audience. So we're going to change that.
So we're talking about Bentley Boys, but it's about ladies.
Yes.
With Dorothy Paget and maybe a few other characters.
She was the first woman to own a racing team, and as few people know, there were more women in motor racing then than there are now. It was very exciting. I mean, the year that the ultimate race in the story, 1930 Le Mans, had two women from France racing for the first time, two lady racers.